Why was she still alive when everyone else was gone? That question haunted Riley Morgan as the walls shook around her, fragments of mud and stone raining down from the ceiling. Bullets had carved the space inches from her head, sharp cracks echoing in the underground bunker. Her left arm stung where shrapnel had cut her, the blood sticky, dark, spreading into the grime of her combat uniform. 37 hours. That's how long it had been since everything fell apart, since her team was compromised, since survival had stopped feeling like victory and started tasting like punishment. The man cowering behind her was breathing too loudly. Dr. Alan Pierce, nuclear physicist, hostage, the mission's sole reason for existing. His glasses were cracked, his face pale, one shoulder dark with blood from embedded steel. He was valuable. She was expendable. That's how she framed it in her head to keep moving. "They're coming back," Pierce whispered, as shadows flickered against the dirt floor from approaching flashlights. Riley checked her magazine. 3 rounds. That was all she had left. She steadied her breath, positioned herself at the bunker entrance, waiting for silhouettes to emerge. When they did, she didn't hesitate. 3 pulls of the trigger. 3 bodies hitting the ground. Silence in the aftermath, heavy and final. She grabbed one of their rifles before the heat left the steel, slinging it over her shoulder. "Move," she hissed to Pierce, dragging him toward a half-collapsed passageway. She found the exit earlier, concealed in darkness just in case. Contingency. Always contingency. When they reached the clearing beyond the bunker, moonlight washed the earth silver. It almost looked peaceful. Almost. But the truth pressed in. The endless pursuit, the enemy shadows still closing in, the extraction that might not even come. Pierce stumbled, gasping, "I can't leave you here." "You can, you will." Her voice cracked like stone breaking. The distant hum of rotor blades began to cut through the night. A helicopter. One last thread of salvation. Riley shoved Pierce forward, her face set with something between desperation and grim resolve. "Go, I'll cover you." He hesitated only long enough to thrust a small object into her hand. A flash drive. Nothing special to look at. But his voice shook as he said, "This is why they want me. If I don't make it, you will." And then he was gone, running through the open clearing toward the chopper, while she turned back to the tree line, rifle raised. The first figures appeared through the shadows, weapons glinting. Riley braced herself. This was it. The rest of the world would never know what happened in that bunker, never know her team's sacrifice, and she would never tell them. Some missions never existed, including her. That night would echo forever in her silence. 3 years later, the silence still defined her. Fort Bragg stretched across the Carolina landscape, its parade grounds alive with routine. For most, the base was tradition, discipline, belonging. For Riley Morgan, it was exile. She knelt on the barracks floor, mop in hand, her once calloused hands now raw from scrubbing. 29 years old, once one of Delta Force's most capable operators, now mocked, dismissed, forgotten. "Morgan, you missed a spot." Corporal Davis kicked his coffee deliberately, the spill spreading across her freshly cleaned floor. His buddies laughed. They all did. She didn't look up, didn't argue, didn't give them the satisfaction. She just dipped the mop again, moving with slow precision. It was the same precision that once made her lethal, now reduced to janitorial rhythm. "I heard she pissed herself in Afghanistan," one of the men said loudly. "Left her whole team to die while she hid behind rocks." The others snickered. The story had grown into legend among the ignorant, each retelling more cruel, more absurd. No one asked why. If she were truly a coward, she was still in uniform. No one cared about the contradiction. Riley had grown used to being their ghost, the shame no one dared address but everyone whispered about. The door opened, breaking the ritual. Second Lieutenant James Reeves entered with a group of younger officers. Unlike the others, his eyes didn't mock when they landed on her. There was something else there, something quieter, curiosity. "Attention," a voice barked. The room stiffened as Captain Williams entered. His gaze swept across the soldiers before landing, inevitably, on Riley. "Today's exercise will test your limits," Williams announced. "The obstacle course has been modified. Last year, less than 40% completed it." His voice sharpened, cruel. "Sergeant Morgan, why don't you join us? Show these men how not to complete a mission." Laughter erupted. Riley set down the mop. Her expression didn't change. "Yes, sir." The summer heat pressed against her skin as she approached the course. The walls were higher, the pits deeper, the crossings narrower, designed to break the body and the spirit. "Begin." Riley moved without hesitation. Her muscles remembered what her mind wished to forget. Wall, rope, mud, balance. Every motion flowed. Years of training, scars of repetition, instincts honed on fields far from Fort Bragg. Reeves watched her silent. This wasn't cowardice. This was grace, precision, strength. At the final wall, 30 feet with barely a handhold, she climbed faster than anyone should. And then she stood at the finish line, posture perfect, barely winded. 2 minutes, 17 seconds, the timekeeper announced, astonished. Williams's face darkened. "Congratulations, Morgan. If only you moved that fast in Ghazni instead of cowering while your men died." The words struck like a blade, but Riley didn't flinch. She simply nodded and walked away. Behind her, the others failed obstacle after obstacle, but she carried only the weight of ghosts. That night, alone in her quarters, a small, isolated cell at the edge of the barracks, she pulled a hidden box from beneath the floorboards. Inside lay 3 medals, a silver star, a bronze star with valor, and a purple heart. Proof of things the world had chosen to forget. Proof of lives traded for silence. Beside them, a photograph. 6 smiling faces in desert camouflage. Her team, arms linked, sunlight in their eyes, all gone. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her nightly prayer, her penance. "I'm so damn sorry." A knock startled her. No one ever came here. She opened the door to find Lieutenant Reeves, posture stiff. "Sergeant Morgan, may I speak with you?" "Of course, sir." "Your performance today was exceptional." His words seemed almost foreign on this base. "Thank you, sir." Silence stretched. He shifted uncomfortably. "Sometimes the official record doesn't tell the whole story. My father taught me that." Her eyes narrowed. "Your father?" "Colonel Matthew Reeves, Special Operations." The name was familiar, too familiar. Her voice was careful. "Yes, I know it." "That's all." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Morgan, some of the men are planning something during tomorrow's night training. Watch your back." The door closed. Riley stood motionless, heart tight. Colonel Matthew Reeves, a name connected to operations that didn't exist. Units erased from records. That his son stood here, crossing her path now, it couldn't be coincidence. After 3 years of silence, the world was shifting again. And Riley Morgan wasn't sure if that meant salvation or the beginning of her end. Dawn came to Fort Bragg like it always did, bugle calls echoing across the parade grounds, flags raised with ceremony, soldiers moving in practiced rhythm. For most, it was routine. For Riley Morgan, it was survival. Every morning she ran the perimeter alone, pounding the asphalt until exhaustion dulled the edges of memory. Fatigue was her armor against the nightmares. By 5:30 a.m. she was in the gym, nearly empty at that hour. That was how she preferred it. No eyes, no whispers. She gripped the pull-up bar, pulling herself higher, her sleeve slipping just enough to reveal the ink on her wrist. A geometric eagle, wings cut into sharp angles, 7 stars woven into the design, not the curved lines of military pride tattoos. This was precise, purposeful, a secret written into skin. The door opened. Reeves entered with 2 officers, their voices light until they spotted her. "Don't stop on our account, Sergeant," one sneered. She dropped down, grabbed her towel. "Just finishing, sir." But Reeves's gaze flickered, not at her face but at her wrist. The look wasn't casual, it lingered. Recognition. In the locker room, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. No name, no context, just 7 words. E7 still operational. Watch yourself. Her breath caught. E7, Eagle 7. The designation no one admitted existed. She deleted the message instantly, removed the battery from her phone. Habit, protocol, muscle memory from another life. The silence was louder now. Later, in the warehouse at the edge of base, she was handed another punishment disguised as work. Reorganize files. Update security classifications. Stay out of the classified sections. Captain Williams's smirk told her he expected her to break the rules. She didn't intend to, but halfway through the box she froze, a faded folder. The logo in the corner almost gone, yet unmistakable. The same eagle, the same geometric shape. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly, pages missing. Only fragments remained, references, code names, old Cold War sites in Europe, South America. At the bottom, a note, handwritten. E7 protocol established, 197. The air in her lungs stilled. She shoved the folder back just as footsteps echoed. Colonel Howard Grant, base commander. His presence filled the space with calculated authority. 58 years old, posture like steel, gaze like a blade. "I wasn't aware you had clearance to review those files," he said coolly. "Just organizing as ordered, sir." His eyes shifted, slow, deliberate, from the box to her sleeve, to where the tattoo hid beneath fabric. "Some matters are best left in the past, Sergeant, for everyone's sake." The words carried threat. She met his gaze, neutral, perfectly understood, sir. But her pulse thundered. She knew then she hadn't been forgotten. She'd been watched. All these years of humiliation, of silence, weren't accidents. They were containment. That night she drove off base, headlights dimmed, following coordinates burned into her mind. A gas station, old, its sign faded, prices frozen from another decade. To most, just decay. To a few, something else entirely. She entered, civilian clothes, her sidearm concealed at her ankle. Behind the counter, an old man moved slowly, a veteran's cap shading sharp eyes. "Regular or premium?" he asked loudly, for the benefit of the trucker nearby. "Just coffee," Riley said. "Long drive ahead." When the door closed behind the trucker, the man flipped the sign, drew the blinds. His voice dropped lower, deeper. "You're younger than I expected, Camo." Her spine stiffened. No one had called her that in years. "And you're exactly what I expected," she answered. "Samuel Wilson, Marine Recon, Cold War." A ghost of a smile. "They told me you did your homework." He pulled out an old coffee tin. From it, photographs, black and white, faces hardened by jungles and snow, standing in front of helicopters and Soviet bloc buildings. Men who never officially existed. "Eagle 7 wasn't always Eagle 7, Wilson said. "We were Timberwolf back then. Same purpose. Missions that couldn't see daylight. Operators who didn't exist." Riley studied the photos. Missions buried, sacrifices erased. One detail leapt out. A scientist, younger but familiar, the same research, energy, weapons. Her pulse quickened. "His son," she whispered. "Afghanistan, 2019, that's who we extracted." Wilson's eyes sharpened. "So it comes full circle." He reached for her wrist gently. "Show me." For a moment she hesitated. Then she rolled up her sleeve. The full tattoo came into view. Angular eagle, stars of the Big Dipper, lines precise as blueprints. Wilson lifted his own sleeve. His was older, faded, but unmistakable. The same code, a different generation. "Different burdens," he murmured, "but the same ghosts." His voice turned quiet, haunted. "We were told our sacrifices would be honored. That was half true at best. Nicaragua, 87. My team died pulling me out. The record said helicopter accident. No mention of them. No recognition, just silence." Riley's jaw tightened. "Ghazni, 2019. Ours wasn't compromised, it was betrayed." His eyes locked on hers. "I believe you, and it's starting again." A noise outside cut him off, a car pulling in. Riley peeked through the blinds. "Lieutenant Reeves." Wilson cursed. "You were followed." "No," Riley whispered. "He's looking for answers." She turned back. "His father, Colonel Reeves." Wilson froze. "Matt Reeves, he was one of us. Eagle 7, early 2000s, disappeared in 2010. Training accident, they said. No body recovered." Reeves lingered in his car, debating whether to come inside. Wilson's eyes hardened. Standard cover, but Matt Reeves didn't die in training. If he disappeared, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. "Why now?" Riley asked, her voice low. "Why stir all this after years of silence?" Wilson handed her a newspaper clipping. "Dr. Alan Pierce, scheduled to testify before a closed Senate committee." The scientist she'd dragged out of Afghanistan. The man she'd saved while her team died. "His work was classified," Riley whispered. "He'd never testify publicly." "Unless someone wants him silenced before he can speak," Wilson said grimly. The bell above the door jingled. Reeves stepped inside, hesitating as his eyes took in Riley and Wilson together. "Sergeant Morgan," he said. "Lieutenant," she replied, steady. "I thought I might find you here." "How?" "My father's things, an old address book. This place was marked." Wilson studied him. "You have your father's eyes and his stubbornness." Reeves's voice shook, but not with fear, with determination. "I want to know what happened to him, and I believe it's connected to Afghanistan, to her." He nodded at Riley. "You need to walk away now," Riley said firmly. "Your career." "My career doesn't matter. Truth does. Honor does. Isn't that what Eagle 7 stood for?" Silence stretched heavy. Finally, Wilson sighed. "Son, what you're poking at has gotten better men than you buried in unmarked graves. But since you're Matt's boy, there's something you need to see." He led them into the back. A wall that seemed solid revealed a hidden scanner. His fingerprints unlocked it. A staircase descended into darkness. "Welcome to Station Echo," Wilson said grimly. Fluorescent lights flickered on. Maps, old radios, modern tech side by side with relics of the Cold War, files redacted into ghosts of truth, photographs of men who never existed. Eagle 7's shadow history, written in fragments and secrets. On the screen, a roster appeared. 2010, mission classified, objective redacted, but one name visible. Colonel Matthew Reeves. And another. Captain Howard Grant. The room seemed to shrink as the truth pressed in. Grant had been there, the same man now watching Riley, the same man holding her leash at Fort Bragg. The computer beeped, a proximity alert. Cameras revealed 2 black SUVs pulling in outside, men in tactical gear, weapons drawn. "Time to go," Wilson snapped, erasing drives, shoving a flash drive into Riley's hand. "Everything I've gathered, not complete but enough to start." They bolted into the storm drain, shadows pressing closer. Riley's lungs burned. Her mind raced. 3 years of disgrace, of silence, of penance. But now the old networks were waking. For the first time since Ghazni, she felt something besides guilt. Purpose. And purpose was dangerous. Purpose got people killed. The night was moonless, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow sound. The training ground stretched wide, forest, fields, mock buildings like abandoned skeletons. The exercise was simple on paper. Infiltrate an enemy compound, recover intelligence, exfiltrate undetected. To most soldiers it was a test. To Riley Morgan, it was a trap she could already feel tightening. "Rear security, Morgan." Captain Williams had said it with relish, as though placing her on the fringe was punishment. Alone, exposed, the perfect setup. She didn't argue, just nodded, weapon in hand, night vision ready. The squads deployed in silence, spreading through the woods. Their boots crunched on soil, branches snapped, voices whispered. Riley moved differently, controlled, deliberate. Her steps made no sound. Minutes passed, the main squad advancing. She swept her sector, senses heightened. That was when she noticed them. 3 figures moving parallel, too far to be part of the exercise, too purposeful to be coincidence. Through her lenses, their faces came into focus, Davis and 2 of his friends. They weren't playing, they were hunting. Riley's heart slowed. Not panic, calculation. She could stick to her assigned post and walk into their ambush, or she could adapt. The choice wasn't hard. She slipped into the trees, vanishing from the position where Davis expected her to be. When they reached it, they found nothing. "Where is she?" one whispered. "Spread out," Davis ordered, his voice low, tight. They separated, searching, but Riley wasn't where they thought. She was already behind them, silent, patient. The first man went down without a sound, pressure point strike at the base of his skull, unconscious before he hit the ground. The second felt a sweep at his legs, and then the world closed with an arm across his throat. Not enough to kill, just enough to remind him he was prey. Davis spun, weapon raised. His voice cut the night. "Morgan, I know you're out here." She stepped from the shadows, calm, steady. "Looking for me." He whirled, too slow. She was already there, disarming him, pulling his weapon free with ease. "What was your plan?" she asked, her tone even. "Simulation rounds at close range, or did you bring something else?" His silence said enough. She checked his vest. The answer was there, real ammunition, loaded. Her jaw clenched. "That's a court-martial offense." Davis sneered. "Who's going to believe you, the coward of Ghazni?" The name hit like shrapnel, dragging her back into memory. Not the false version whispered in barracks, but the truth she carried like a stone inside her chest. She saw it again. The valley in Afghanistan, the sudden eruption of fire from the ridges, the air filled with screams and gunfire. Hayes shouting over comms. They knew exactly where we'd be, the perfect ambush. Too perfect. Jackson's voice as he called for extraction, jammed, useless. Chin falling, a sniper round finding the gap in his armor. Miller dying reaching for him. Cooper and Rodriguez drawing fire so others could retreat. The chaos, the precision, the betrayal. And then Hayes, bloodied but steady, ordering her to take Pierce and go. His last look before he turned toward the door of that bunker. The sound of gunfire. The weight of final orders. And then the long hours of hiding, conserving bullets, dragging Pierce through terrain meant to break them. The secondary extraction point. The helicopter. Her choosing to stay, laying down fire until her rifle clicked empty, then scavenging weapons from fallen enemies until even those were gone. 5 days of evasion. 5 days of starvation and wounds and silence. She had lived. Her team hadn't, and when she staggered back into friendly hands, there had been no honor, no recognition, just men in suits asking questions she couldn't answer. "What did Pierce tell you? What did you hear? What do you know about Prometheus?" They hadn't cared about Hayes, about Jackson, Chen, Rodriguez, Miller, Cooper. They hadn't cared about the sacrifice, only about secrets. The general had told her plainly, "Your team never existed. Your record will be rewritten. You will be the coward of Ghazni, and you will accept it, or you will lose everything." And she had accepted it, because silence was the only weapon left to her. Now Davis smirked at her, holding the lie over her head like a blade. "You have no idea what happened there," she said softly. "I know enough," he spat. "Guys like you get people killed." She could have told him everything, could have shattered the lie, but she didn't. The oath was a chain she could not break even now. Instead, she zip-tied his wrists, stripped his radio. "Lieutenant Reeves," she called calmly into the comm. "3 men down at my position." "Medical," his voice answered instantly. "Negative, just wounded pride. And Lieutenant, you might want to bring the MPs. I've got some unauthorized ammunition." The forest was quiet again, her breath even, her body still, but inside her ghosts roared. Because Ghazni wasn't finished, It never would be. Later in Colonel Grant's office, she stood at attention as he flipped through the report. His face unreadable, his tone like cold steel. "Live ammunition during a training exercise," he said. "Corporal Davis claims it was planted, that you're framing him." "The ammunition was in his vest," Riley answered evenly. "Military police documented it." Grant studied her, silent for a long moment. 3 years without incident, Morgan. 3 years of obedience. And now suddenly you're filing reports, making accusations. "I was defending myself, sir." "Were you?" He leaned forward. "Or were you meeting with Samuel Wilson yesterday?" Her breath stilled, but her face remained neutral. "Stopped for gas on the way back from town." "Don't insult me," Grant said, his voice sharpened. "Station Echo has been compromised, a facility that officially doesn't exist, accessed by unauthorized personnel, including Lieutenant Reeves." He knew everything. She said nothing. "Eagle 7, he said, testing her. The words hung like a noose in the air. "I'm not familiar with that designation," she replied, voice flat. He laughed, humorless. "Still playing by the rules, that's why you were chosen. Compartmentalization, exceptional discipline, the perfect soldier for missions that can't exist." His eyes narrowed. "And the perfect scapegoat." Finally, she met his gaze. "Is this conversation being recorded, sir?" "Do you think I'd have it if it were?" "Then why are we having it?" He pulled a device from his drawer, switched it on. A signal jammer hummed, cutting the room from outside ears. "Because the game has changed." His words dropped like stones. "Dr. Pierce is scheduled to testify before the Senate next month. Closed session. The first time his work will be acknowledged." "His research was classified beyond clearance," Riley said. "Why would he testify?" "Because someone wants it legitimized," Grant said. "Prometheus. Directed energy technology, miniaturized power source, mounted on aircraft satellites, a weapon that rewrites warfare." Her chest tightened. Pierce had mentioned it in passing, half delirious during their escape. She hadn't wanted to believe it. "And someone betrayed us to stop it," she said quietly. Grant's eyes flickered. "The wrong question, Morgan. Don't ask who. Ask why I'm telling you this now." "Then why?" "Because someone is eliminating loose ends. 3 former Eagle 7 operators dead in a month. Wilson is next. Reeves, too. And you were contained. Your disgrace was protection, until you started opening doors." She stood spine straight. "Who sold us out?" "You'll never know," he said. "What you should know is this: stay in your lane, accept your role, it's safer." Her voice cracked just once. "Is that what you told Colonel Reeves before he disappeared?" For the first time his expression shifted, a flicker, a ghost of emotion, then it was gone. "You're dismissed, Sergeant." Outside, Reeves was waiting, his face pale, anger simmering beneath restraint. Davis and his men, transferred Fort Irwin. No appeal, no explanation, overnight. "Grant's cleaning house," Riley murmured, "removing witnesses." "To what? A training accident?" Reeves shook his head. "This is bigger." She didn't answer, but she knew. They were in it now. The shadows had begun to move again. How many times had she whispered his name in the dark? Hayes, the one who gave the final order, the one who told her to go. She had seen him last in the doorway of that bunker, blood on his face, rifle raised. She had heard the gunfire, the screams. She had lived with the certainty that he was gone. But certainty is fragile. It began with a photo. Reeves found it, slipped under his door in an unmarked envelope. A grainy image, low resolution, time-stamped from a satellite feed over Eastern Europe. A convoy of armored vehicles moving through snow. And on the last truck, a figure stepping down. Broad-shouldered, beard streaked with gray, one eye covered by a patch. "Hayes." Riley stared at the image until her vision blurred. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. But the posture, the stance, even the way he gripped the rifle, it was him. Her chest tightened. Hope and terror tangled together. If Hayes lived, then everything changed. If Hayes lived, then Ghazni wasn't what it seemed. Reeves leaned against the wall, his voice quiet. The intel came through one of my father's old channels. Whoever sent it knew I'd show you. Or knew you, show me, she said, her tone sharper than intended. You think it's bait. I think nothing in our world happens by accident. She folded the photo, slid it into her pocket, but it burned there like a live coal. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of lights outside her room. Her hand hovered over the photograph. Every instinct screamed caution, but her heart whispered something else. She remembered Hayes's voice in the valley. If you don't make it, Morgan, then everything we've done is for nothing. And she remembered the silence after. The next day, Reeves intercepted her near the motor pool. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed. I traced the image back. It wasn't satellite, it was drone footage. Our drone, task force control. But the file was scrubbed from servers. Only a ghost copy remained. Meaning someone didn't want us to see it. Or someone wanted us to see only that. Before she could respond, the alarms blared. Security lockdown. Soldiers running toward the north gate. Reeves grabbed her arm. Come on. They reached the perimeter in time to see two SUVs ram the checkpoint. One burst into flames, the other riddled with gunfire. A firefight erupted, gunshots cracking across asphalt. Riley pulled Reeves behind cover, her instincts alive again. Not an attack, she muttered, a distraction. And she was right, because as soldiers converged on the burning SUVs, a single motorcycle cut through the chaos, slipping past the confusion, heading toward the airfield. Riley's eyes tracked it. The rider wore black helmet reflecting firelight, too precise, too planned. She didn't think, she moved, sprinting toward the nearest Humvee, hot-wiring it with muscle memory. Reeves jumped in beside her as she gunned the engine, tires screaming against pavement. The motorcycle weaved through the base, cutting toward a hangar. Riley floored the gas, closing distance. Reeves raised his weapon, but she shoved it down. Not yet. The rider skidded into the hangar, forcing them to stop. They bilayed out, weapons raised, shadows stretching long in the cavernous space. The rider dismounted, pulled off the helmet. Riley froze. It was Hayes. It was a woman, late 40s, hair cut short, face scarred from burns, her eyes sharp, commanding. You're late, she said. Her accent carried Eastern Europe, hard edges softened by time. Riley steadied her aim. Who are you? Name doesn't matter. What matters is this. She pulled a drive from her jacket, tossed it to the floor between them. Proof Hayes is alive. Proof he's being held. Proof your Colonel Grant isn't who he claims. Reeves kicked the drive toward Riley. She picked it up, heart pounding. The woman didn't flinch. He's at Black Veil, underground facility, off the grid, funded by the same people who betrayed your team. You want him back, you'll need more than courage. Why help us? Riley demanded. Because I owe him, the woman said simply. He saved my life once, now I repay the debt. Before they could press further, headlights flared at the hangar entrance. Military police, dozens of them, rifles raised. The woman smirked. Your friends are fast. She vaulted onto her motorcycle, revving the engine. We'll meet again, Morgan. She was gone before they could stop her. The MPs swarmed. Reeves stepped forward, trying to explain, but Riley knew the truth. This was no misunderstanding. This was containment. Grant arrived minutes later, calm amid the chaos. His eyes swept the scene, then locked on her. What a mess, he said. And somehow, Morgan, you're always in the middle of it. She offered no excuse, just silence. He dismissed the MPs, then leaned closer. His voice dropped. If Hayes were alive, what would you do? Her jaw tightened. Bring him home. Grant studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. That's what I thought. Be careful, Sergeant. Ghosts aren't always what they seem. Back in her quarters, Reeves plugged the drive into an isolated laptop. The files flickered alive. Footage, not recent but clear. A dim underground room, men in restraints, guards in unmarked uniforms, and there, chained to a chair, was Hayes. Older, harder, one eye gone, scarred across his cheek, but alive. Riley's hand covered her mouth. She couldn't breathe. Reeves whispered, "It's him." Her throat burned. 3 years, they let me believe he died. They let me carry it. The footage cut abruptly. The screen went dark. Then a final image appeared. Coordinates, Black Veil, deep in Eastern Europe. She leaned back, chest heaving. Her ghosts had names again, faces, and one of them still lived. Reeves broke the silence. If we go after him, we'll be alone. No support, no chain of command, just us. Not just us, Riley said softly, her voice steady now. There are still those who remember Eagle 7, and if Hayes is alive, he remembers too. She stood, pulling her jacket on, sliding her sidearm into its holster. For 3 years I've carried shame that wasn't mine. If this is my chance to put it down, I'm taking it. Reeves met her eyes, something like resolve burning there. Then I'm with you. Outside, the night stretched endless. The base lights glowed like false stars against the dark. Somewhere out there, Hayes waited. Somewhere out there, answers waited. Riley clenched the photograph in her fist until her nails cut skin. The war wasn't over. It had only been waiting. The hum of fluorescent lights pressed in on her quarters, but Riley Morgan didn't move. She sat on the edge of her bunk, boots laced, jacket zipped, sidearm checked. She had been ready for hours. Waiting wasn't weakness. It was discipline, and discipline kept her alive. The base was quiet past midnight. Soldiers slept. Gates manned by skeleton crews. Security cameras swept on predictable cycles. She had studied them all, old habits. She knew where the blind spots were. Reeves appeared at her door, face pale under the dim hall light. I've secured a vehicle, East Gate, but once we're out, there's no coming back. Riley rose, her movements fluid, controlled. Coming back stopped being an option the moment we saw Hayes on that screen. They moved through shadows, careful and silent. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of metal, the crunch of gravel. At the gate, Reeves flashed credentials, easy smile, the perfect officer. The guard barely glanced before waving them through. And just like that, they were ghosts. Miles down the highway, the base lights disappeared in the rear view. Reeves gripped the wheel, tension stiff in his shoulders. Where first? Wilson, Riley said. If Grant knows about Station Echo, then Wilson's not safe. They pushed hard through back roads until the gas station's faded sign appeared. But something was wrong. The windows shattered, smoke curling from inside. Riley was out of the vehicle before Reeves stopped it. She moved low, weapon raised, scanning angles. The smell hit first, burned paper, charred wood, the faint acrid bite of accelerant. Inside, the shelves were overturned, photographs trampled into ash. Wilson's lifeline of history gone. And then she saw him. Samuel Wilson lay behind the counter, chest soaked in blood, breath shallow. His veteran's cap lay beside him, torn and burned. Riley dropped to her knees, pressing hard on the wound. Stay with me, Marine. His eyes fluttered open, pain, clarity, knew they'd come. Who? Reeves demanded. Wilson coughed, red spilling from his lips. Grant, not the top, just handler. They wanted Pierce, still want him. Hayes knows why. Riley's grip tightened. Where is he, Wilson? Black Veil, East, old Soviet tunnels. Hayes is alive, prisoner, but not just him. His voice broke, trembling. Others, names erased. Units gone. He's not the only ghost. Riley leaned closer, desperate. Tell me what to do. His hand shook as he reached for her wrist, gripping the tattoo. Don't let us be forgotten. Don't let it end in silence. The last breath rattled out of him. his eyes fixed open, unblinking. Riley's chest ached. She closed his lids gently, then sat back. The room spun. She had carried ghosts for years, but now she carried another. Reeves crouched beside her, his voice low. "We can't stay. Whoever did this might still be close." She nodded, forcing herself to stand. She slid Wilson's cap into her pack, not as a relic, as a promise. Back on the road, silence stretched heavy. Reeves finally spoke. He said, "Others, do you think?" "Yes," Riley cut in. "There were other missions erased, other soldiers sacrificed. Hayes isn't alone." "Then Black Veil isn't just a prison," Reeves said grimly. "It's a graveyard." The weight pressed between them, a graveyard of the forgotten. Hours later they reached a safe house, an abandoned farmhouse Wilson had marked years ago. Dust lay thick on the windowsills, but the walls were reinforced, the cellar stocked with outdated but functional gear. Weapons, radios, maps. Riley moved through the space with muscle memory, checking locks, angles of fire, escape routes. Reeves watched her, then finally asked the question burning in him. "Why you?" Her hand froze on a window latch. "Out of all the soldiers, out of all the teams, why were you chosen for Ghazni? Why branded after? Why you?" She turned, eyes cold. "Because I don't break." "Everyone breaks," he said softly. Her jaw tightened. For a moment the silence felt like a confession. Then she spoke, her voice low. "They needed someone who could carry silence, who could bury it so deep it never surfaced. I was their insurance policy." Reeves stepped closer. "But if Hayes is alive, then silence isn't enough anymore." "No," she admitted, "it's not." The farmhouse phone rang, a sound so startling in the quiet that both froze. It rang again. Riley picked it up, careful. "Morgan." Static hissed, then a voice, male, rough, worn. "Riley." Her throat closed, she gripped the phone tighter. "Hayes." "It's me." A pause heavy with years. "No time, they're watching. Black Veil isn't what you think, don't come for me. Promise me, Riley, don't." The line cut dead. She stood there, hands shaking, breath shallow. Reeves's eyes were wide. It was him. It was him, her voice cracked. "But why tell you not to come?" She stared at the dead phone, haunted. "Because he knows I will." Dawn crept gray across the farmhouse. Reeves slept fitfully in a chair, but Riley sat awake, the phone call replaying in her mind. His voice, the order, "Don't come." But Hayes had taught her something long before Ghazni. Orders were only as good as the reason behind them. And sometimes, disobedience was the only way to save lives. She opened Wilson's pack, digging past spare ammunition, past maps, until she found it. A sealed envelope, her name scrawled in faded ink. Riley Morgan. Her chest tightened as she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet, handwritten. "If you're reading this, then I didn't make it. Or maybe I did and they just won't let you know. Doesn't matter. What matters is this: Hayes isn't your ghost. He's your compass. Don't let them turn you against yourself. Don't let them make you silent forever." She folded the note, slipped it into her jacket. A weight lifted, not gone, but shifted. For years she had believed survival was shame. Maybe survival was purpose. When Reeves woke, she was already packing. "Where?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "East," she said. "Black Veil." He frowned, even after what Hayes said. She met his gaze, voice steady. "Especially after what Hayes said." "Because sometimes a warning wasn't meant to stop you. Sometimes it was meant to tell you exactly where to go." They loaded the vehicle in silence. The farmhouse shrank in the distance. Ahead, the road stretched endless, uncertain. Behind them, the first light caught the smoke still curling from Wilson's station. Another ghost laid to rest. Another step closer to the truth. The ocean stretched endless beneath the transport's belly, black and restless under the scattered moonlight. Riley Morgan sat pressed against the cold fuselage, headset muffling the roar of the engines. Across from her, Reeves studied a folded map lit by a red bulb, his jaw clenched with the weight of unspoken questions. Neither spoke. Silence was safer in the air. They had left the States the only way possible, off-grid. A contact of Wilson's, an ex-pilot named Calder, had owed debts too deep to repay. His rickety C-130 was their bridge to the other side. No manifest, no paper trail, just ghosts carrying ghosts across the Atlantic. Riley stared at her hands, calloused, scarred. They trembled now not from fear but from something harder to name: anticipation, dread, hope, all tangled into a knot that pressed against her ribs. Hayes was alive. She had heard his voice, felt it cut through 3 years of silence like steel. But if he was alive, what had he become? Prisoner, asset, pawn. Her mind looped back to his last words, "Don't come for me." She should have obeyed. But obedience was what had buried her team in Ghazni. Obedience was what had kept her scrubbing floors while the truth rotted. No more. The landing came hard on a forgotten airstrip in rural Poland. Calder muttered a curse as the wheels slammed asphalt, but he got them down. He didn't linger. As soon as they stepped off, the engines roared again, the old bird lumbering back into the sky. Reeves adjusted his pack. We're really in it now. Riley scanned the horizon, dark woods, frost biting the air, silence stretching far. We were in it the moment Grant looked me in the eye and called me Eagle 7. They trekked to a safe house marked on Wilson's map, an abandoned church on the edge of a village where the windows were boarded and the bells long gone. Inside, hidden beneath a false floor, was a radio unit, dusty but functional. Wilson's network had prepared for ghosts like them. Reeves fiddled with the dials, encrypted channels still active, barely. Static hissed, then faintly a voice. Veil movement confirmed, package secured. Riley leaned in. Replay it. Reeves shook his head. Live feed, we can't. Package secured, Riley repeated, her chest tightened. Hayes. Or Pierce or both. For hours they listened, fragments bleeding through the noise. Mentions of Prometheus. Mentions of transport convoys. Mentions of directives above Colonel Grant's clearance. Reeves finally asked the question that had been eating him. What is Prometheus? Riley closed her eyes. The memories surged. Afghanistan, Pierce delirious, whispering about breakthroughs. Not bombs, not bullets. Energy itself bent and focused. Weapons that didn't need ammunition. Weapons that could turn a battlefield into glass in seconds. Directed energy, she said quietly. Miniaturized, portable. Power pulled from the atmosphere itself. If it works, she let the thought hang. Reeves's face paled. Then it changes everything. No more logistics, no more supply chains, just endless fire from the sky. And whoever controls it, she added, controls the world. He rubbed his eyes, and Hayes. If they're keeping him alive, it's because he knows something, or because he refuses to give it to them. Riley stood, packing the old floorboards. Ghazni wasn't an ambush, it was extraction. They wanted Pierce alive because of Prometheus. We died for it. Reeves's voice was rough, and now they'll kill again to keep it. A sound outside snapped them both to silence. Footsteps, multiple, crisp, deliberate. Riley motioned, and they melted into shadows, weapons ready. The door creaked. 2 figures entered, flashlights cutting across pews. They moved with professional precision, not looters, not locals. Special forces. Riley struck first, silencing one with a chokehold, lowering him gently to the ground. Reeves disarmed the second, pressing him against the wall. Who sent you? Reeves demanded. The soldier spat blood, sneering. You're already dead. Riley pressed the muzzle to his jaw. Black veil, where is it? He laughed. Even with her weapon against his skin, he laughed. You think you're hunting them. You're the bait. Reeves's grip tightened, but Riley's gut told her the truth. They had been tracked from the start. Wilson's network compromised. Calder's flight known. their every move allowed like pieces sliding on someone else's board. The soldier's teeth clenched. Too late, Riley saw it, the bulge beneath his vest. "Bomb!" she shouted. The blast ripped the air, the pews splintering into fire and smoke. The church walls groaned, crumbling. Reeves was thrown back, blood streaking his temple. Riley's ears rang. She dragged him from the wreckage, lungs burning, vision swimming. The bodies of the soldiers smoldered inside, nothing left to question. Outside, snowflakes drifted, indifferent to fire. Reeves coughed, sitting up. "They knew where we'd be." "They want us alive," Riley rasped, "for now." "Why?" Her answer came hollow. "Because they want me to lead them to Hayes." They stumbled into the woods, finding cover beneath frostbitten pines. Reeves pressed gauze to his temple, wincing. So what now? Riley's breath hung white in the air. Her mind turned sharp again, cutting past smoke and pain. "We keep moving east. Follow the convoys. Black Veil isn't on any map, but if Hayes is there, he's worth more alive than dead. And that means they'll slip. Somewhere." Reeves studied her in the dim light. "You talk like this isn't just about saving him." She met his gaze, steady, haunted. "It's not, it's about the truth, about all of them. Hayes, Wilson, my team, everyone erased." Her voice cracked once, but she didn't look away. "I can't carry their ghosts anymore, not without answers." They pressed deeper into the forest. Branches snapped under their boots, the cold biting harder with every mile. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared. Convoys, the hunt moving closer. Riley Morgan pulled her hood tighter, rifle slung across her chest, jaw set like stone. For the first time in years, she wasn't running from the past. She was running into it. The forests of Eastern Europe stretched, endless skeletal trees clawing at a bruised sky. Snow fell in thin needles, biting at exposed skin. Riley Morgan trudged forward, boots sinking into ice-crusted earth, each breath a cloud in the frozen silence. Behind her, Reeves staggered under the weight of his pack, but he kept pace. His wound had scabbed, his temple bruised, but his will hadn't broken. Not yet. Ahead down the valley road, the convoy moved. 4 armored trucks, their engines growling against the cold. Tires ground snow into mud. Armed guards rode in the back, their silhouettes black against the white. Riley dropped to her stomach, binoculars raised. The insignia on the lead vehicle was faint but telling. Not Russian, not NATO, but something in between. A ghost unit born from shadows. "Black Veil," she whispered. Reeves crouched beside her, shivering. "You think Hayes is in one of those?" Her jaw tightened. "No, they wouldn't risk moving him like cargo, but they're headed somewhere worth guarding." They shadowed the convoy for hours, slipping from ridge to ridge, keeping distance. The trucks wound deeper into the mountains, into places where maps faded into blank white. By nightfall, the convoy reached a tunnel carved into rock. Steel gates yawned open, swallowing the vehicles whole. Guards in heavy coats patrolled with dogs, weapons glinting under floodlights. Riley's stomach turned. It wasn't just a tunnel. It was a scar cut into the mountain, widened, fortified. "Black Veil." She lowered the binoculars, her breath unsteady. "That's it." Reeves stared, awe and dread etched into his face. "It looks like a fortress." "It's worse," she said. "It's a grave." They retreated into the tree line, building a crude shelter beneath frost-laden branches. Reeves lit a small stove, the flames struggling against the cold. The silence stretched heavy between them until he finally broke it. "Morgan, why does this feel personal for you? Not just Hayes, not just Gasney, all of it." She stared into the flame, her reflection warped in its flicker. "Because I was chosen for it. Not the mission, the silence after. They needed someone to bury the truth. Someone who'd survive, carry the weight, and never speak." Reeves's voice cracked. "That's not survival, that's punishment." Her throat tightened. "Sometimes they're the same." The flame sputtered, then died, leaving only cold. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it came in fragments. Riley dreamed of Ghazni again, the screams, the fire, Hayes's last look. But this time, when she turned toward him, his one remaining eye stared back through a blindfold, and his voice whispered not orders but blame. "You left us." She woke with a start, sweat freezing on her skin. Reeves stirred, muttering, but didn't wake. Riley gripped her rifle, steadying her breath. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of what she might find when she opened those gates. By dawn, they were already moving, circling closer to Black Veil. They found a vantage point on a cliffside, giving them a full view of the mountain base. Helicopters lifted off from hidden pads. Trucks rolled in and out. Searchlights swept across snow. It wasn't just a prison, it was an ecosystem. Reeves adjusted the scope of his rifle. Too many guards for a standard detention site. Too much infrastructure. "Because it isn't detention," Riley said. "It's research." Prometheus. The thought pressed against her skull. How much had they already built? How much power was already in their hands? Movement caught her eye. A prisoner detail led from one building to another. Emaciated men in tattered uniforms, shackled, pushed by guards, their faces hollowed by hunger and time. And one of them paused, stumbling. The guard struck him, forcing him forward. But in that brief moment, Riley's heart stopped. The man's stance, his build, even through rags, through scars, she knew it. "Hayes." Her breath caught. She gripped Reeves's arm, pointing. "Do you see him?" Reeves adjusted his scope, eyes narrowing. I'm not sure." "It's him," her voice broke. "It has to be." Reeves lowered the scope. "If it is, he's barely standing." Riley's chest burned. For 3 years she had carried ghosts. Now one of them stood in chains. She pulled back from the cliff, forcing herself to breathe. "We need a way in." Reeves shook his head. "2 of us against that, it's suicide." "Then we find more." "Who?" She thought of Wilson's words, others, names erased, units gone. There were more like her, soldiers buried by silence, forgotten by design. If Hayes was alive, maybe they were too. That night they tailed a supply truck leaving Black Veil. It rolled cautiously down the mountain roads, 2 guards inside, crates rattling in the back. Riley and Reeves ambushed it at a hairpin turn, precision and silence cutting the soldiers down before they could radio. Inside the crates, not food, not ammunition, files, documents stamped with codes sealed in plastic. Riley flipped through them, her heart racing. Names, service numbers, missions wiped from history. One photo slid free. A woman's face, sharp eyes, hair tied back. The same woman who had ridden the motorcycle into the hangar weeks ago. On the back a code, Spectre 4. Riley shoved the files into her pack. Proof, pieces of the puzzle, but also something more, allies. Reeves's voice was low. "If there are others, then Black Veil isn't just holding Hayes." "No," Riley said softly, "it's holding all of us." They ditched the truck, fire consuming its remains, smoke curling into the frozen night. From the cliffside, alarms wailed at Black Veil. Searchlights swept wider, helicopters roared. The mountain had awakened. And Riley Morgan knew time was running out. For Hayes, for the forgotten, for the truth. She gripped her rifle, eyes on the fortress carved into stone. For 3 years, silence had been her weapon. Now silence was her enemy. Snow whipped against her face as Riley Morgan crawled along the ridge. Below, Black Veil pulsed with light and motion, searchlights carving the night, patrols circling in endless rhythm, the mountain breathing like a beast. Every instinct told her to turn back. Every memory told her to keep going. Reeves followed close, his breath ragged, his eyes locked on the fortress below. How do we even breach that? Riley scanned the perimeter. The convoys used a service tunnel to the east, smaller, less guarded than the main gate. We ride their shadow, slip inside before they know we're here. Hours later they lay in wait. A supply truck lumbered toward the tunnel, its headlights cutting through snow. As it slowed at the checkpoint, Riley moved, silent, precise. Two guards dropped before they could shout, their bodies dragged into shadows. Reeves climbed into the truck's cab, starting the engine as Riley slid into the back, slipping between crates. The gates opened. The truck rolled forward, swallowed by stone. Inside, the air shifted, damp, metallic, reeking of oil and confinement. Concrete walls stretched endless, lined with cameras. The truck jolted to a stop. Voices outside. Orders barked. Riley signaled. Reeves killed the engine. They waited until the guards moved on, then slipped into the maze of corridors. Black Veil wasn't a prison. It was a labyrinth. Hallways echoed with boots, doors locked tight, fluorescent lights buzzing like insects. Through a narrow window, Riley glimpsed rows of men in cells, faces hollow, eyes empty. Some wore uniforms from wars decades past. Others wore none at all. Forgotten soldiers, erased from history, living graves of silence. Her stomach clenched. Wilson had been right. Ghazni wasn't unique. It was just another page in a book written in blood and denial. "Riley," Reeves whispered, pointing ahead. A control room, glass windows overlooking the cell blocks, and inside Colonel Grant. He stood tall, coat immaculate, voice sharp as he gave orders. His face carried no surprise. He had known they would come. Riley's grip tightened on her weapon, but she didn't fire. Not yet. Answers mattered more than vengeance. They slipped closer, taking cover behind a console. Grant's voice carried through the glass. "Prepare the transfer. Pierce testifies in 2 weeks. He doesn't reach that chair. And Hayes, he's leverage, nothing more." Riley's chest burned. She pressed her lips together, fighting the surge of rage. Guards moved Hayes into view, shackled, dragged by 2 men. He was thinner, face hollow, but his one remaining eye still burned with defiance. Riley's heart stopped. "Hayes," she whispered. He lifted his head slightly, as though sensing her. Grant continued, voice calm. "Prometheus will change the battlefield, and no committee, no Senate hearing, no soldier's ghost will stop it. Morgan did her part. She played her role. Now she'll die with the rest of them." Reeves tensed beside her. "He knows we're here." "Yes," Riley said. Her voice was steady. "He's inviting us in." They moved, fast, silent, down the corridor through steel doors into the holding area. Riley struck first, her rifle butt crushing one guard's skull. Reeves disarmed the second with a snap of bone. And then Hayes was there, closer than in dreams, closer than in nightmares. "Captain," Riley breathed. He looked at her, disbelief flickering into something harder. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to." "No," his voice cracked. "I told you to leave me. You don't know what they've made me into." Before she could answer, Grant's voice boomed behind them. "She knows exactly what you are, Hayes, a loose end." Riley spun, weapon raised. Grant stepped into the room, flanked by armed men, his expression calm, almost amused. "You think this is about saving him," Grant said softly. "It's about burying the truth, again." Riley steadied her aim. "Why me, Grant? Why brand me? Why keep me alive?" He smiled faintly. "Because you were perfect, loyal, silent, a scapegoat who never spoke until now." Her finger tightened on the trigger. But Hayes spoke first, his voice rough, desperate. "Don't kill him." Riley froze. "Why?" she demanded. "Because he's not the top," Hayes rasped. "He's a leash, cut him and another takes his place. But alive, he's a key." Grant's smile faltered, just for a moment. The standoff stretched, heavy with breath and silence. Then alarms blared, sirens wailed, reinforcements closing. Reeves raised his rifle. "We're out of time." Riley's mind spun. Choices cut razor thin. Kill Grant now and lose answers. Spare him and risk betrayal again. She looked at Hayes, scarred, broken, but still standing. She looked at Reeves, bloodied, loyal, untested by betrayal. And then she lowered her rifle. "Move," she ordered. They dragged Hayes into the corridor, Grant shouting orders behind them. Gunfire erupted. Bullets carved the walls, sparks flying. Riley fired back, each shot deliberate, precise. Reeves covered their flank, Hayes stumbling between them. Through tunnels, through fire, through chaos they ran. Guards fell, doors buckled. Explosions shook the mountain as systems failed. At last, daylight, the service tunnel's mouth, snow blasting against their faces. A helicopter thundered above, unmarked, blades slicing the air. A rope dropped, their way out. Reeves shoved Hayes upward, climbing behind him. Riley covered them, bullets whipping past. Grant appeared at the tunnel's mouth, weapon raised, his face twisted with fury. Their eyes locked. Riley held his gaze. Then she fired, not at him, but at the ceiling above him. Stone cracked, collapsed. The tunnel swallowed him whole. She turned, grabbed the rope, and the helicopter lifted them into the freezing sky. Below, black veil burned. Hours later, safe in the chopper's belly, Hayes lay against the wall, chest heaving. His eye met Riley's. "You disobeyed me," he said. She nodded, voice soft. "I learned from the best." For the first time in years, his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Reeves sat across from them, silent, watching. He had no ghosts yet, but he had chosen to carry theirs. The horizon blushed with dawn, light spilling across snow. Riley closed her eyes, breath steady. She had saved Hayes. She had pulled a piece of truth from silence. But she knew it wasn't over. Prometheus still existed. Others still hid in shadows. The war was bigger than one mountain. And yet, for the first time, she felt something like peace. Because sometimes dignity doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for recognition. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak at all. It simply acts.